Welcome, Reds, to the 100% United pod. I'm your host, TC, and here's my co-host, Scott. How are things, Scott?
Hi, TC. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Coming up on today's show, it's 3 wins on the bounce. We've topped our Europa League group with a 4-0 win over AZ Alkmaar. We reflect on a superb performance from Mason Greenwood. Before looking ahead to Everton at Old Trafford on Sunday, we cover any other United stories that have caught our eye this week. First, Scott, safely through, top of the group, avoiding those Champions League dropouts that you were so worried about too.
For now, anyway. I still think we're destined to draw into Milan this year sometime.
Yes.
But as you saw, we've just beaten Tottenham and City. It seems like we raise our game with the better the opponent. And I don't think there's anyone in that draw that we couldn't beat.
And it seems like Luke Shaw wouldn't mind having a piece of Romelu Lukaku as well.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
What do you think of that after Lukaku went out of Europe?
Yes.
Obviously out of the Champions League, dropped down to the Europa League. Luke Shaw aimed a barb his way. Obviously, Lukaku was the man who leaked the fact that Luke Shaw's sprint time was slower than Juan Mata's in the summer. And Luke Shaw, as a good revenge merchant does, waited patiently until he got his opportunity to get back at Romelu.
Yeah, he's been sitting on that for about 3 months now, hasn't he?
Frothing. But superb stuff. I enjoyed that from Luke Shaw. It was a bit of fun. But let's get cracking. 4-0 against AZ Alkmaar. It seemed like it was going to be one of those nights, didn't it, Scott? And then we just lit up in a sort of 10-minute period, and before you knew it, we were over the hill and far away.
Yeah, I think the first half we sort of tried with this slower, methodical football that just doesn't really work for us, does it? No. I was surprised maybe to see Maguire and Martial in the starting lineups.
Yeah.
But the first half was very forgettable, wasn't it? But it didn't take long in the second half for the Stretford end to just suck in a goal.
Yeah, as it does. I mean, let's have a look at the lineup. We had Sergio Romero in goal, 31 clean sheets out of 50 appearances for United. Not a bad ratio.
Incredible. Against his old club as well.
Yeah, absolutely superb. We had Ashley Young at right back, skipper for the day again. Axel Tuanzebe partnered Maguire. Obviously a surprise selection in the centre of defence. Brandon Williams back in. That was good management from Ollie, wasn't it? Take him out of the firing line for the 2 big games, pop him back in for the Europa League.
Yeah, and also give Luke Shaw a bit of a rest. He's just come back from injury.
100%.
Yeah,
really good stuff. And as you said, Scott, a really good game to use the fact we've got Matic on the books. Looks like the relationship's ended between him and Ollie, but in a game like that, that's the time to use him, right? Yeah,
I'd have to agree. It would have been, I think, a bit much to have the midfield that we did in Astana a couple of weeks ago with Garner and Levitt. But he did add a good amount of experience. But
yeah,
the performance was pretty invisible, wasn't it? He went missing for huge periods of time. Never really seemed comfortable on the ball.
No, he didn't. And actually, Garner outshone him, didn't he, really?
He did. And I've got to go on record with a risk here. But the more I watch Garner, the more I see slight flashes of Paul Scholes.
Oh, really? Oh,
those are it's obviously massive pressure almost to put on the lad, but he seemed to buzz around the midfield that like a young Scholes he did, and he seems tenacious and always wants to go forward. I really like his positivity.
Yeah, one thing I will say about our young group, they do seem to have a fantastic attitude. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I've noticed. I try and keep a real close eye on youngsters coming through, and they do seem to have a really good atmosphere in the group, but also individually. They seem to have a good attitude. So we had Garner and Matic midfield. I think that's a good option to give Garner a chance alongside Matic. Matic is a seasoned international, won Premier Leagues and whatnot.
And playing just behind Mata. 2 huge experiences in the middle.
Yes. Greenwood out to the right. Mata and Pereira really sitting on each other's lap on the left. When I look at the average positions every week, Mata just sits on whoever's on the left wing's lap if he plays in the number 10 position. And then Anthony Martial up top on his own.
Yeah, I was surprised with that, especially when we had Chong at our disposal, given this was a game that we didn't even need to win it, right? Job could have been done with a draw. But I think that getting Martial back into full fitness as well is hugely important. We've got some important games coming up. But I thought to myself, as soon as we go 2-0 up here, he's got a great opportunity to bring Chong on, put him on the right and move Mason up top.
That's exactly what he did. First half was really forgettable. 0-0, not many chances. We had a Pereira corner that Harry Maguire had a header from. He is connecting with a few more corners, Harry Maguire, so I'm hoping there will be goals.
Oh, he's changing his tactics, isn't he? Yeah. The first couple of months he was only on that far post, trying to head it back over the middle. And now it seems like he's mixing it up a little bit and keeping defences on their toes.
Yeah, I mean, that was what we did with Fellaini, wasn't it? Fellaini hung on the back post and he'd drop it back in for the other guys coming in. It seemed like Maguire had kind of replaced him. But Maguire's better than that. He's a real attacker of the ball. And I much prefer him picking up different positions rather than just always being on the back post, because you can prepare for that as an opposition manager, can't you?
You can, and I think that Fellaini, he won more contested headers. You've got to say he was a bit more all over the defenders. He would draw a lot more fouls, but he was I think a better candidate to have on the back post.
Oh, 100%. Harry Maguire is more of a middle to front post man, like attacking the ball with power, whereas Fellaini likes a hung ball. So yeah, maybe that's just an adaptation thing. It will come with time. Like I say, 0-0 at half time. It really looked, the moaners were out in force, weren't they, in that first half, if you look back on the comments and whatnot. But second half, as we said, it all kicked off. 53rd minute, Mata, an unbelievable touch, really, you have to say, in the box. Smashed it across the face of the goal. Ashley Young looked like Cafu at the far post, didn't he, from that angle?
Couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, you got to say as well, it was nice to link up play with Mata and Pereira over there on the left. You're saying they're
really good.
Getting on each other's toes. And truth be told, it was a nice ball through from Nemanja Matic to find Mata in the box when he was onside.
Yes, it was. And it was nice. Ashley Young, he said on Instagram, didn't he, that his gran obviously died a few months ago. He said, that one's for you, grandma. Sorry about the wait. It's been a few months, which I thought was quite nice. It didn't take long. 5 minutes later, Mason Greenwood. I thought at first, Garner's had an assist there, a tackle assist, my favourite. It was really a foul assist, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He didn't touch the ball.
Where's VAR when we need it, Scott?
I have a feeling that Mason just took the ball and shot it so quickly because he thought that a foul was going to come, right?
Yeah.
And whistle wasn't blown. Goal stands. It was one of those that I thought was going to get chalked back, but I actually couldn't believe it didn't.
Let's not mess around. Bezo in the AZ Alkmaar goal was flapping all over the place. It was not great keeping again, was it?
He was, but it just seems like another opportunity to compare Mason Greenwood and RVP, doesn't it?
It does. What I've noticed with Greenwood, he throws his body through the ball like Van Persie did. You see that right, if he's kicking with his left, the right foot follows through, and your whole body kind of comes through. And I think that's the similarity in terms of their striking. RVP really put a lot of his body behind the ball.
Absolutely, and that's where all the power comes from. You look at Mason's frame, and it doesn't look like he should be able to get that much power, but it is his technique that makes up for a lot of the fact that he's still only 18 years old, right? You imagine when he's 24, he's going to be hitting it a lot harder than that too.
And we all know you with your favourite player of all time. We know it's not the size that matters, it's the technique, right? Paulie Scholes, you know that.
That's true.
Look, 62nd minute, Mason Greenwood into the box, won the penalty, so he's got an assist as well. Juan Mata stepped up, went to the keeper's right. Again, I thought the keeper was a bit dodgy. It was if that's a world-class keeper, he's not scoring that.
Who's saying that's a world-class keeper?
No, I'm saying if it was a world-class keeper, he would have saved it. But Mata knows it's not, and fired it home. 3 goals in, 9 minutes. And there was another one to come 2 minutes later. Raiding from the right, Mason Greenwood, Robin Van Persie-esque again, fired us 4-0 and over the hills and far away.
Yeah, you couldn't complain with it. Mata, 2 assists and a goal. Great display from him. Yeah, it's amazing what 11 minutes will do, right? It's the same as Sheffield United. We were rubbish for 80 minutes, but for 10 minutes in the middle, we were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And scores 3 goals. So,
and that's a good habit to have.
It is.
That's a good habit to have, and it's a habit that the top teams have. I'm not saying we're a top team yet. We're a top club, but we're not a top team yet. But to be able to blow a team away when you've struggled and huffed and puffed is a really, really good sign. And we have done it a few times. I know there's a caveat to it.
It is, but against a better team, we're going to be smashed 3-4-0 at half time.
Yes.
If we play like that, similar to Sheffield United. It was interesting to see 2 games in the space of 4 to 5 days where we played completely different football.
Yeah.
Against City, we were all over them on the counter-attack.
Okay.
And here we obviously had to play more methodical, more patient build-up. And making 9 changes as well, and still winning 4-0 is a huge feather in our cap, you got to say.
Exactly. I was going to flag up the 9 changes. I mean, we actually, very, very surprisingly, we actually had 49% possession last night, Scott. So 49 to 51 in AZ's favour. 14 shots to their 7 on target to their 4, 5 corners to their 3, and 6 fouls to their 12. So it wasn't a dominating performance that you'd expect in terms of stats. In terms of scoreline, of course it was. Mason Greenwood, the youngest player to score twice in Europe for Manchester United. 18 years and 72 days.
Yeah.
I was there up in the top of the North Stand when the last guy did it, Wayne Rooney, on that night when he bagged the hat-trick. Greenwood,
the last person to do it was Marcus Rashford, wasn't it?
You might be right.
Caught you.
You might be right there. Get me on the stats, Scott. Dear me, blood. You could do that off air,
if you're the stat man, you can't be coming out with that, right?
Am I the stat man? I don't know. I just do it.
Of course you are. These things are easily verifiable.
That's why I've got you there, Scott. Don't worry. Mason Greenwood, second top scorer this season after Marcus Rashford. Rashford on 13, Mason Greenwood on 6. That's an amazing display for an 18-year-old.
Any odds on him being top scorer for the Europa League?
I don't know.
Watch me put a fiver on that and he doesn't score another goal. Forget that. Forget I said that.
Well, Mason Greenwood was actually the Europa League Player of the Week of the whole Europa League. So, for a guy who's just passed his 18th birthday, that's a pretty good return, right?
It is. And wasn't it great to see, you were saying earlier, there's nice camaraderie between the youngsters. After he scored his first goal, the first ones literally sprinting there, celebrating with him, was Brandon Williams and James Garner.
Yeah.
They were going just as crazy as him. It was lovely to see.
It was fantastic to see. And to be honest with you, I've kind of led you into your man of the match, Scott. Are you going to go against the whole of UEFA, or have you got a different one for me?
Well, given that the whole of UEFA, as you say, is saying it, I think I've got to go with Mason as well.
Oh, I'm going with Mason as well. It's an easy one this week, isn't it?
Easy. Absolutely
fantastic.
Easy. Although Juan Mata's, 1 goal, 2 assists, which was a great return for someone who's just celebrated his 6th anniversary. Can you believe that? 6 years.
6 years since Moisey flew him in on the chopper.
Oh, on the chopper. Talk about dramatic entrance, right?
Absolutely.
And you got to think that was one of Woodward's first big signings as well, right?
It was.
That's got his name all over it too.
It was indeed. Look, we've got a massive schedule coming up. We've actually got Everton at the weekend. We've got them on Sunday. We've got 5 games in the next 14 days, 7 in the next 18 days. We've got Everton on Sunday. Then the 18th, we've got the EFL Cup against Colchester at home. We go to Watford on the 22nd of December. We've got Newcastle at home on Boxing Day, away to Burnley on the 28th. And then we face Arsenal on the 1st and Wolves away in the FA Cup on the 4th. And it's a massive, massive schedule, Scott. Loads of points up for grabs. I would suggest that these two, well, 3 now, last games are not going to define our season, I would say, like I said, in the next 18 days is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you got to think a couple of weeks ago, you look at those fixtures and you think, well, Everton are in turmoil.
Yeah.
Watford are in turmoil. Arsenal are in turmoil. Those are 3 games possibly we can get some points, but now they've all changed their managers. And they're trying to ride this wave that a new manager brings in. I know Duncan Ferguson isn't the most experienced of managers, but they beat Chelsea 3-1 last weekend, and they're a much different team than they were a couple of weeks ago. So it's definitely something that we've got to take with just as much caution as we did the City and the Tottenham games.
Exactly. And Everton I would say, is a massive, massive test just because what happened last time against Everton. We all know it was an absolutely disastrous day for Ollie, United and the players. We got turned over 4-0 at Goodison Park. It was a massive low. And Ollie's come out and he said, look, we're ready for this now. We're a different unit. We've got a different mentality now. And it's time for us to show it, isn't it?
It is. It seems like a long time ago that we went and got smashed there 4-0. Probably one of the worst days in Ollie's career as a manager. I remember after that game, he said that there were a few characters that wouldn't be playing for United again. And you got to tip your cap to him that he's made some difficult calls. Nemanja Matic is obviously nowhere near the first team squad. The saga rolls on with Paul Pogba, who really knows what's going on with that. And he's made some changes defensively. So he's been given a good amount of time now to put his impact on the team. So you're right, it's a huge test to see how far we've come since that very grey day back in, was it April?
I believe so. End of April, early May, yeah. Lingard may be back. As you said, Pogba's not back. He's supposedly training properly next week. Ollie actually said, he said this is a different group from last time we played Everton. They're ready for the fight. They're ready for the football. And the journalist actually came back and said, but it's the same players though, in general, isn't it? And Ollie said, yeah, but the mood is very different in the group. So he's saying, look, yeah, the players are pretty much the same, but the spirit has changed. Yeah,
I remember them wreaking havoc down the left that day with Richarlison and Bernardo. And I don't think they're going to have that much freedom with Wan-Bissaka down there nowadays. I was reading some stats today that they were comparing Trent Alexander-Arnold and Wan-Bissaka. And he's turned Spanish all of a sudden. And obviously, Alexander-Arnold's better offensively. He's got, I think, 6 assists and 1 goal compared to Wan-Bissaka's 0-0. But the tackles...
Yeah.
Alexander-Arnold had 24 tackles this season. Do you know how many Wan-Bissaka's had?
Well, I know 12 in one game.
But how many over the course of the Premier League season and Premier League games?
I don't know, Scott. You're the stat man.
Well, for this I am. 62.
Unbelievable.
TC.
Ridiculous.
62.
You know what? I was saying earlier, I was talking to someone about football, and when you've got a guy in your team who loves to tackle, it spreads throughout the team. You see the guy doing it. You can tell humans. You can tell them what to do, but if you show them what to do, it's so much more. It has so much more strength. And Wan-Bissaka does that. He shows everybody. And we've seen it in the past, haven't we? Wes Brown, for instance, he used to do a smash, and then everybody's smashing each other up. So I love it. I absolutely love having a fullback whose first job is to defend.
Yeah, and his main priority. Yeah. This day and age is littered with fullbacks who their first priority is to get forward, and to actually have one who loves to defend as much as anything is massive. And the introduction of Harry Maguire as well, you've got to say, is a defender who loves to defend. And I think Ollie's decision to not play those two next to each other and sort of alternate them. Yeah. As you're saying, it's when you're playing next to someone who brings so much defensively to the team, it's infectious and contagious. So it's made Lindelof and Luke Shaw / Brandon Williams a better player playing next to those two too.
100%, Scott. That's exactly it, isn't it? You and you know what, with fullbacks and the great United teams, from my experience, you normally have one fullback who's more on the defensive side and one fullback who's more on the attacking side. Normally, it tends to be the right back's more defensive and the left back's more attacking for some reason, probably because left foot is a bit more creative, apparently. But in general, that's the balance, isn't it? What you want in a top team. One fullback, first and foremost defending, but also attacking, and one fullback, first and foremost attacking, and sometimes defending.
Yeah, and when you want to play with width, as Manchester United historically do like to do, you have to have fullbacks who can overlap, but also have the speed to be able to get back and do their primary job of defending, right?
Yeah.
You think of some of the best partnerships we've had on the wings, probably Dennis Irwin and Ryan Giggs, or Gary Neville and David Beckham. They trusted each other so much defensively that they allowed each other to have so much freedom.
Yeah.
If we can get Daniel James and Wan-Bissaka on the same path, then I think that we'll have success down that right for years to come.
And they're a nice balance, aren't they, as well? You've got James, who's just raiding non-stop, massive pace. So he covers more of that wing as well, which benefits the fact that Wan-Bissaka is a little bit deeper. So Wan-Bissaka leaves that space for Danny James, if you like. Also, Danny James knows he's got the blooming the enforcer behind him. So if he does vacate his position temporarily, Wan-Bissaka's got it covered. So yeah, you're right.
And they're both rapid.
Yeah, and you know what, football is about partnerships. We've talked about it so many times. The balance between the partnerships, the centre-backs, the full-backs, the midfield, the strikers. The balance is so important, and like you say, I think they do complement each other very well indeed.
Let's hope he can maybe get forward and assist some goals, because we've had some fullbacks who could put some devastating balls into the box, and let's hope he can maybe add that to his game in the years to come.
Yeah, let's hope. But at the moment, we're happy with him being our big enforcer. One thing I will say, Scott, on Sunday, barring an absolute miracle, it will be the 4,000th game in a row that Manchester United have had an academy graduate in the team, which I think is absolutely unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Since 1937. And you've got to think that record's completely untouched through Sir Matt Busby's years, through Sir Alex Ferguson's years. But you've got to think that it's quite surprising that maybe it held through the Moyes and the Van Gaal and the Mourinho years. It just would have been... I'm just really relieved that we got through that spell of people wanting to put their own impact on the team and the club, and got through with that record intact.
What do you think of Mourinho's comments the other day when he was asked by a journalist? He said, obviously you've had trouble at your past clubs bringing youngsters through and all the rest of it. Is that a fair criticism? And Mourinho hit back and said, Scott McTominay is the best player at Manchester United. Raphael Varane is one of the best players in the world. So yeah, it's a fair criticism. And I thought, I wet myself laughing. I was thinking, you still love your son. Scott McTominay made up an award for Scott McTominay at the end of the season. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
The manager's player of the year. It never existed before. I don't know if it still exists, sorry.
You know what, though? The quality that Mourinho's teams have had throughout the years that have made them some of the best teams in the world is that never say die, 50-50 challenges. You're going to win every one of them. You can see that in Scott McTominay. So the more I watch him, the more I can see Mourinho's impact. And you've got to say it's not a bad impact, right? Like Mourinho has won countless amount of trophies. It's something that maybe, year in, year out, Mourinho wasn't such a bad guy. He lost his way the last year especially. But is it such a bad thing that we have such an indelible stamp on our team? I don't think it is. The more I watch McTominay, the more I see the Mourinho influence, and I don't think it's a bad thing whatsoever.
No, it's not a bad thing, I don't think. But I think McTominay has that. He just has that indomitable passion for Manchester United that we as fans just can't get enough of.
Yeah.
And he's going to try, and like Ollie says, he just wants to be the best player he can possibly be. He's being like we would be if we played for United, just trying to cover every base and hoping he's good enough.
Am I right in thinking as well that Marcus Rashford played the most games for United under Mourinho?
I don't know exactly, Scott. I don't want to say another false stat, and you're going to pull me up on it. But he's stitching me
in a
up.
trap.
I don't know, but I did say at the time, I know we chatted in depth about it, Scott, that back in the day we used to criticise managers for playing youngsters too much. Remember, we used to talk about burnout. Back in the 90s, the early 2000s, it was like, oh, he's playing them too much. He's been disrespectful to the youngsters. And now it seems to have gone full circle. But we always said, with youngsters, you've got to put them in and take them out, put them in, take them out. I'm sure Rashford's played the most games under Mourinho because he obviously got put into the team by Louis van Gaal. But Van Gaal didn't last too long afterwards.
Oh no, I mean, out of the United players that Mourinho managed, Rashford played the most games for Mourinho's teams.
Apart from De Gea, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's probably an outfield stat, right?
I think you might be right.
It was just one of those worries that we had when Mourinho was coming in that, he's not going to play youth and he's going to bring in X, Y, and Z, and it just wasn't proved. And us keeping that record, that 80-year-old record, intact is to that.
Yeah. And to be fair, Scott, you said that Spurs were pretty rubbish against us.
They were.
That was one of your reasons that you gave for our victory. But whenever they play anyone else under Mourinho, they're pretty blooming good. So maybe it's a bit of us too.
Well, they were rubbish against Munich the other night. Does that count?
Yeah, but it's dead rubber. God, you're difficult tonight, aren't you? Dear me. Look, moving on to another youngster who came through the ranks. Not such a youngster anymore, but Jesse Lingard actually gave an interview earlier on. He said he's actually gone and visited Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, knocked on his door. Ollie was on his back a lot, saying, look, Jesse, you're on your last warning. The summer's no good with your video. And he was on Lingard's back a lot. And he knocked on his door and he said, listen, I've been having massive problems in my life. My mum's ill. He's actually got his brother and his sister, Jasper and Daisy Boo. They're 14 and 11 years old, living in his house. He's got a baby daughter who's 1 year old as well. His granddad's got cancer. And he basically knocked on Ollie's door and said, look, this is what's going on. This is why I'm struggling. He said he's got a broken heart. And he said Ollie's given an unbelievable support for him. And they're working through it together. So we've mentioned it on the podcast before. We always try and look at, we do see the players as humans. We do see them as real people. And we do understand you have ups and downs in life and influences, like we said with Fred and his wife dragging him off to Disneyland every weekend. They are still humans. So, you know what? I think this is another feather in Ollie's cap in terms of the way he manages players.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Something he learned from Sir Alex Ferguson, right? Like Sir Alex Ferguson was famous for putting his arm around players and keeping everything in-house. I remember when Ronaldo's father passed away, and even when Eric was going through his troubles. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something you can see that he learned from Sir Alex. And, it's something that we sort of forget, right? Like you just said earlier that Ashley Young dedicated this goal he just scored to his grandma who passed away recently. And you sort of think back on it, the last few months, Ashley Young's been getting just torrents of abuse on social media. And like, is that what he needs at times like this? You sort of forget that they're going through troubles, and people think, if I was earning $100,000 a week, I wouldn't have any troubles, and I'll be this and I'll be that. And it's impossible to say, right? You just forget that they're humans and they've got problems and real world troubles. And just because you're earning X amount of money, or you're playing for Man United, or you're famous, or you've got a new Bentley, or this and that, doesn't mean you're immune to problems and to difficulties in life.
No.
So I wish him well.
Yeah, we all do. As you like to say, money don't make the world go round. And also, Sir Alex Ferguson, I would say Sir Alex Ferguson was anything but fair. He treated players differently. He treated different players differently. And this is what Ollie's doing. You've got Lingard. He's got a personal relationship with Lingard. He coached Lingard in his time in the reserves. He was very hard on Lingard. And the fact they've got such a close relationship means he can go to him and say, listen, pal, I'm struggling here. I'm really, really struggling. I might seem like I'm fine. I'm laughing and joking all the time. But behind closed doors, I'm not. And that's something Fergie did amazingly. Look, remember when Fergie sent Ronaldo off back to Portugal for a couple of weeks when his father was ill, and he said, come back when you're ready. He didn't give Ronaldo an ultimatum as to when he's got to come back. And that, in terms of Ronaldo's life, meant so much that he gave Ferguson everything after that. Yeah,
absolutely. And it was the same thing with Eric Cantona. When he got banned extra by the FA after we had already banned him in-house, and he wanted to quit. He wanted to hang up his boots, and Fergie had to go and find him in the south of France and talk him out of it. And it wasn't so much a this is what you have to do. This is what I'd like you to do. Please make the best decision. And that sort of empathic approach that you can see is something is just straight out of Ferguson's book of management, isn't it?
Yeah. And as the story goes, Fergie was on the back of a moped looking for Eric
Yeah.
all around the regions of France. That's how the story goes anyway.
Could you imagine him on a moped?
I can, yes, I can. Oh, God, we love that guy, don't we? Right, next, I've got a fan question for you.
Go on.
From one of our residents, the Demon Headmaster. He has a question for you. He wants to know, look, we had the Sheffield United and the Aston Villa game, which were absolutely disastrous on the pod. We went over it massively. And then we had the Spurs and the City game. And he said, look, football's so weird. What, in your opinion, Scott, are the three main differences that explain the performances against Sheffield United and Villa and then against Spurs and City?
Firstly, this is completely on the spot, right? You haven't even asked me this before the pod, so cheers for putting me on the spot here, TC.
I sent you a message earlier.
Oh, well, I didn't see it. Thanks for that.
Figure that out. Did you not?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we'll do it next
No,
pod.
it's okay.
No
it's
problems.
okay.
I actually sent it to you.
It's okay.
Have a second.
All right. I got it. All right. Well, it's a great question, and it's actually, quite a milestone because it's our first question on this pod from a fan. So thanks so much. I would probably say that the three things would be preparation. I think probably for the City and the Tottenham game, we were more prepared for it. We're more mentally prepared. We did more, intel on the squads, and we knew more about the squads we were playing. It's hard to play against teams that have just been promoted in Sheffield United and Villa.
Yeah.
Second thing is passion.
Yeah.
I think the introduction of McTominay back into the team was huge for us. As we're saying, playing next to someone who gives everything as Wan-Bissaka and Maguire do, it raises their game, and I think it does the same for Fred. I think that playing next to McTominay really raises his game, and he feeds off McTominay's passion, so it makes Fred play better as well.
Yeah.
And the third thing you've got to say is probably pace. I think against Tottenham and City, we were always on the front foot. We're bombing down the flanks. And maybe against Sheffield United and Villa, two games that we probably were expected to dominate possession and chances, we sort of try this methodical, slow approach that just doesn't work for us. And I think we play so much better when we're hitting teams on the break and utilising the pace that, those front four of Rashford, Lingard, James and Martial. Yeah. You can sort of see the difference in Martial between Thursday when there was no pace around him. He's much slower than he was against City and Spurs. So,
but would you also say that the teams we were playing against play into our hands as well, of course, so they give us that space to use our pace. They allow us to play on the back foot, whereas against Sheffield United and Villa, they're quite happy to say, yeah, no, you have the ball. You can play it around Maguire and Lindelof and Wan-Bissaka. You can play it around the back, no problems. Whereas City and Spurs come, with their fists raised above their faces, ready for a set two. And we are very well equipped. If you look through Solskjaer's record since he began, we can look at the interim period and we can look at the official period. One thing Ollie has got a massive consistency with is results against big teams. Yeah.
It's impossible to play counter-attacking football against a team who aren't playing possession football against you. I think that Sheffield United and Villa were looking to hit us on the break as well and catch us with our pants down. It's very difficult for both teams to both play on the break. So you're right. I think City and Tottenham's tactics played into the fact that we could hit them on the break and play with a bit more pace. But it's something that we've got to learn, right? Because not every team we're going to play is going to want to kick lumps out of us like that. And we sort of see this slow, methodical approach of the first half on Thursday just wasn't cutting it. And something snapped in the second half. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe just getting an early goal and getting that bit of confidence and maybe a bit of fortune in the second goal as well. As you said, it was probably a foul. So I think we need to try and find that balance.
I agree, Scott. I mean, we have got the perfect test coming up, haven't we? As I said before, I mentioned the teams. We've got Everton, Colchester, Watford, Newcastle, Burnley, next 5 games until just after Christmas. Now, there's no big teams there. There's none of those teams are going to do what we want them to do. So I would suggest that, as I said before, this is the defining period. I've got all eyes on Sunday, 2:00 against Everton. I want to see these words put into action. I want to see this. Because, look, Ollie's doing the hard part. Beating Guardiola, beating Jose Mourinho, beating City, beating Spurs, taking points off Liverpool like no one else can do this season. He's doing the hard part. So I just, hands together, praying that he can do the easy part against the teams where we've got better personnel than them.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe the preparation for these bigger games is more focused and more intense compared to the smaller games, and maybe it's something that he needs to learn as well, that he needs to raise these players and get these players even more up for games like Sheffield United and Aston Villa, because anyone can get up for the City and the Spurs game. They're massive, massive games, national TV, the whole world's watching kind of thing. But it's up to the manager and the coaching staff to get these players up for these smaller games even more, because as you say, the points are just as valuable, right?
Well, exactly the same value. And of course, in momentum terms, you beat Spurs and City, you get more momentum than if you beat Sheffield United and Villa. But if you beat Spurs and City, of course, you want to finish off Villa and Sheffield United too.
Well, you're also taking points from the teams around you as well, right?
Of course you are. Did you catch Ollie's interview where he was talking about when he arrived at United just before we end the show? Did you catch? He gave an interview with Sky Sports, just saying about what it was like when he arrived at United and his nerves and all the rest of it. Did you catch it, Scott?
I actually didn't, no, but I like your analysis of interviews, so let me know.
It was amazing. He said he came in and he said that he learnt how to say hello in French because he knew he'd meet Eric Cantona. And so he was at training, he was ready, and Eric wasn't there. And he's waiting for Eric. Eric was late, and he said he hit it off with Eric quite early. And obviously in his first game, he had that goal where he hit it into the keeper, got the rebound, and he said he looked up, and the first person to celebrate him was Eric Cantona, and he was just like, "Wow, I can't believe it." And I must say, just watching it was just, obviously Ollie's had a few, he's had a hard few months, but it was lovely to see that Ollie where he's just a little kid who arrived at the sweet shop that is Old Trafford and ate everything that was in front of him.
Yeah, again, fantastic analysis.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for listening again, everyone. Do keep the questions, reviews, likes and follows coming. It really does help us to provide the best show we can possibly provide for you. So keep them coming. Thanks for joining me again, Scott.
Thank you, TC.
We'll see you on Monday, Reds. Cheerio.
Ta-ra.